Hi, this video will cover section 1.3, evaluating functions using function notation for the class math 0305 with the core requisite of 1324. And this video will focus on the second and third page of this section. So it is part B. So let's start by filling the blank here. And so in the class 1324, we focus a lot on revenue, cost, and profit functions, and then we do things with those functions. So let's go ahead and just establish that for those functions, we typically use the letters R, C, and P. So R, we use R of X, is used to denote the revenue of a function. And C of X is used to denote the cost of a function. And P of X, we will use that for profit of a function. So think of something. Let's say that you go to McDonald's and you pay $1 for a burger. So that dollar that you're paying McDonald's, this could be considered the revenue. But because they use materials and of course they have to pay their employees, so let's just assume that in an average it will cost them, let's say 10 cents to make a burger. So this could be considered like the cost of that burger. So in fact, McDonald's doesn't get to keep that whole dollar. They will get to keep $1, which is the revenue, the money they're taking in, minus the 10 cents that it costed for them to make the burger. So then we could say that the profit will be 90 cents. 90 cents of a dollar. So how do we know that? We subtract $1 minus 10 cents. So we could conclude that to find the profit in general, we will use the revenue function, R of X, and subtract the profit, I'm sorry, not the profit, but the cost. So the cost of the for whatever item you're working on. So when finding P of X, the profit, remember that you need to distribute this negative sign, and that's what we're going to be practicing with today's lesson. Distribute that negative sign to the entire cost function, not only the terms that have X. So for our example 2 that we have here, we are given the revenue function, the cost function, and then we're given 3 different X values. Now, in this, for this particular problem, X, we're still using it to represent the independent variable, and in this case is representing the number of items, the quantity. So it says here, find the profit given the revenue and the cost. So we already know that to find the profit, we need to use the revenue function and subtract the cost function. So that's what I'm going to do here to evaluate the profit function. So I'm going to take the revenue function, so the equation for it is here, is 750x minus, now the cost function, it has 2 terms, so I'm going to go ahead and use parentheses, so this will be 600x plus I need to make more room here, plus 4,500 close parentheses. Now here, remember, we need to distribute that negative sign to everything. So to here and here. And so we're going to have 750x, then minus 600x, and then negative times 4,500, so it will be minus 4,500. Now here we can combine like terms, our x terms, and that will give us the profit function of 100x minus 4,500. And so that is the equation that we're going to use to answer the questions that are to us, and those questions are here. So we need to find the profit for 20 items, the profit for 30 items, and the profit for 50 items. And so what we're going to do here, we're going to be substituting just like we did on the first part of the first page of this lesson. So we're going to find the profit of 20. And so remember, for every x that you see on your function, we're going to substitute that with the number 20. So this will be 100 times 20. And let's not forget about the minus 4,500. So in this case, we will have 100 times 20, that would be 2,000. Actually, I'm so sorry. I just found I made a huge mistake. That should be a 5. And so should be this one here. Oops. Okay. So 750 minus 600 is 150. So I'm so sorry for that. 150x and 150 here. Think of it as me trying to see if you were paying attention. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I don't need that anymore. Okay, so if we want to multiply 150 times 20, that will give us 3,000. And then minus 4,500. And so in this case, we're going to get negative 1,500. And so is it okay to have a negative profit? Well, it's not okay, but yeah, it could happen. And so that means that this company, whoever's making those items, is actually losing money. The cost is higher than the revenue. Let's see what happens at 30 items. And so if we have 150, remember we corrected that. So 150 times 30 minus 4,500. And so for this one right here, we will get 4,500 minus 4,500. And you will know that that will equal to 0. So whenever the profit is equal to 0, that happens because the revenue and the cost are the same. As you can see here, they were both 4,500. So if we subtract them, we get 0. And so whenever the revenue and the cost are the same, the profit is 0. And we call this process the breaking even point, or to break even, meaning you don't gain but you don't lose anything. Now I don't have space to do the next one, so let me see. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just delete a little bit of what I have here. So now let's do our substitution for 50. Okay, so if we substitute 50 now, and for x equals 50, so we find the profit at 50. And so 150 times 50 it's going to be 7,500. So if we have 7,500 times, I'm sorry, not times, but minus 4,500, then what we're going to find after subtracting those, I'm trying to erase this, it's a little difficult. So after we subtract those two numbers, we will get 3,000. So I'm talking about 7,500 minus 4,500, and we get 3,000. So that will be the profit of 50 with 50 items. Now, let's go ahead and move on to our next part, part B. And so for this one, we're going to answer the same questions. So first, we're going to find the profit equation. And so remember, the profit is going to come from the revenue minus the cost. So in this case, profit will be revenue, which is here, 17x, minus 10x plus 56,000. And that's the one here. So remember, we must distribute the negative sign, and then we will combine like terms. So here we have 17x minus 10x minus 56,000. So this is going to give me 7x minus 56,000. So now, to answer our first question is find the profit if you were to sell 4,000 items. So we're going to have a P of 4,000. And so just like we did before, we're going to substitute that X with the input, which is 4,000. And then here we still need to subtract the 56,000. And so from here, we will obtain 28,000 minus 56,000. And so that will give us negative 28,000. So remember, if your profit is negative, that could be considered a loss of $28,000 because you have a negative profit. Now let's find for another X value for 8,000. So now we're going to use the same formula here, the same equation for profit, but now we're going to have to find the profit at 8,000. So we substitute 7. Well, actually, I'm missing my equal sign. Seven times 8,000 minus 56,000. And so this will give me, it equals to 0. So right here, we're going to have our break-even point. So if the question was, how many items would you have to sell for this person, or will this person have to sell to break even? The answer will be 8,000 items, because at that point, the profit is 0, meaning that both the revenue and the cost will equal to each other. Okay, now let's find out what is the profit of 10,000. So again, we substitute into this equation 10,000. Okay, and so right here, we're going to get, if we multiply 7 times 10,000, we will get 70,000 minus 56,000. And so the profit for 10,000 items will be equal to 14,000, just like that. Okay, and that's it for problem B. So let's move on to problem C. And we're going to do the same thing first. We're going to find the revenue function. So revenue is the, I'm sorry, not the revenue, the profit function. And that's going to equal to the revenue function minus the cost function. So let's go ahead and take the equation for revenue, which is 150x, minus the equation for cost, which is 110x plus 40,000. And so here we can combine like terms. So the profit is going to equal 150x minus 110x. So that will give us 40x plus 40, not 40, yes, actually 40,000. So it's a 4 with 3 zeros, not 4 zeros. And now, just like we did before, we're going to find the profit after making and selling 800 items. So here where this X is, we're going to substitute that with an 800. So the profit for 800 items, it will be a total of negative 8,000. And that's just the final answer. So you could see here, the profit is negative, so we have a loss of $8,000. Okay, now let's move on to the next one, which is 1,500 items. So we need to find the profit of 1,500 items. So we're going to have 40 times 1,500 parentheses plus 40,000. And so the answer for this one is going to be positive 20,000. So in this case, we're making a profit of $20,000. Now the last one here is 1,000 items. So let's see what happens there. So what will be the profit of selling 1,000 items? So we have the same equation as here, but now the X is going to be replaced with 1,000. And so this will be 40,000 minus 40,000. And so this will equal to 0. And remember, when the profit is equal to 0, we call this the break-even point. Meaning there's no loss, there's no gain, no profit, profit is 0. And that also means that the cost and the revenue are the same. Okay, so let's move on to the third and last page for this one. You guys should be getting very used to working with this problem. So let's go ahead and find the profit function. So remember, it is revenue minus cost. So in this case, we will have 20x minus 12x. And then remember, we have this positive 20,000. But once we distribute this negative sign, our profit function should say minus 12x minus 20,000. Actually, I'm going to go back to this one just to make sure I distributed the negative like I should have. And oh, my writing's not there anymore, so I don't know what happened to it. So let's just go back here. Oh, so revenue 20x minus 12x minus 20,000 after I have already distributed that negative. So if I combine like terms here, I will get 8x And then, of course, minus 20,000. So let's go ahead and find the revenue at 500 items. And so that will be 8 times 500 minus 20,000. So this revenue at 500 is going to be equal to negative 16,000. Remember, anytime you have a, and I'm sorry, again, I don't know what is wrong with me. Well, actually, because I'm rushing. That's not revenue. That should have been profit. P for profit. And so profit, let's remember that, is the revenue minus the cost. Okay, so whenever your profit is negative, that means that we have a loss of $16,000. Now for the next one, we will have find the profit of 2,500 items or 2,500. So this is going to be using this function here. It will be 8 times 2,500 minus 20,000. And so the profit for 2,500 items is going to come up to be 0. Remember, that will be the break-even point. Now, let's go ahead and find the profit for 3,000 items. So again, we're using this equation that came from subtracting the revenue minus the cost. And here, I skipped that place. This was a positive, but then after distributing the negative, that's how we got the negative 20,000. So at 3,000 items, let's find that out. So 8 times 3,000 minus 20,000. That one will give us positive 4,000. And so that means that we have a profit of $4,000. Okay, so for the next ones, I'm just going to go ahead and find the equation. Well, we only have one x value. Maybe we'll have time to do it. So this very first one, we have profit. Again, it's the same as the revenue minus the cost. And the profit in this case is going to be 20x for revenue minus, and I'm going to put this whole equation for cost in parentheses, just so that I do not forget to distribute my negative sign. And that is very, very important, because if you don't, then you will not have the correct equation for profit. So this profit equation will be 20x minus 15x minus 100,000. And so here the only like terms are right here. So that will give me 5x minus 100,000. So if we want to answer the question, which is find the profit for 30,000 items, so right here where this x is located at, we will be replacing that. So it will be 5 times 30,000. And then, of course, this minus 10,000, or 100,000, I should say. And that will give us, if we multiply this 2, we will get 15 with 4 zeros. So that's 150,000 minus 100,000. It will give us positive 50,000. And so that is the answer for that. I'm going to just do this last one because I'm running out of time. I need to go to class. So to find the profit, we do the same, the revenue minus the cost. And so this will equal to 24x minus 18x plus 150,000. So 24x minus 18x minus 150,000. You have to distribute that. So then the profit for this one, 24x minus 18,000x is equal to 6x minus 150,000. Now, to answer the question, of course, is find the profit after selling 22,000 items. So the profit of that, after substituting 22,000 right there, 6 times 22,000 minus 150,000. And so the profit for that number is going to equal to negative 18,000. And because it's negative, we say it's a loss. So I will leave the next problem for you to solve. The equation for profit, however, try to work it out yourself and see if you can get it. It should be 14x minus 35,000. So this concludes the video. Thank you for watching.